Well, hello, everyone. I am Matt Williamson. How's everyone doing this fine day? Follow me at Williamson NFL. So as I was walking down to practice today, you're probably aware, but my phone got a notification that the Steelers brought back Marcus Golden. And it's something you and I have talked about a lot. It's a move that I 100% condone, as you know from talking about this before. I thought there was a fourth edge outside linebacker spot still available. And I think he's also a capable three. We can split hairs of who's the three, him or Herbig, whatever. Often is the case with these veterans that they're not super duper excited about doing every day a training camp. You know, maybe a abbreviated version of camp and all those things has crossed Golden's mind at his age. He's 33 years old. But I love it. So I thought he played quite well for the Steelers, and I expect a very similar role. Last year, he had 4 sacks and 13 pressures on only 88 pass rush snaps. It's pretty darn good. I mean, he only rushed the passer 88 times in the Steelers uniform and impacted the play of 13 of those snaps and 4 sacks. Only played 230 total snaps last year, but he has played as many as 916 in the season. By no means at his age and his usage do you want him near 900. But if they were to get hit harder, knock on wood, that they aren't at that position than they did last year, I think he'd be capable of logging 500 or so, maybe double what he did last year. So that's a good number. They have 4 quality guys there now, high quality guys, in my opinion. He's also a solid run defender. He's about 260 pounds and plays it. He has some physicality to him, a little bit of a short arm guy, but he's a banger with, an old man's game, knows how to rush the passer, has been around the league. Like I said, he's 33 years old, coming off a strong season. He's had double-digit sacks in 3 of his NFL seasons. I mean, that's not easy to do, and I don't think he'll ever approach that again. But if you get 4 or 5 out of him again this year, maybe he plays 350 snaps instead of 230, that's fine. By all accounts, he's a good locker room presence, good influence on Herbig and those dudes. What I don't know, and maybe is something that hurt his cause a little bit in terms of signing earlier had he wanted to, is where does he fit in on special teams? Because he really hasn't in the past. And in today's practice, they did a lot more of this kickoff rule stuff. And I wonder, might Golden, and we'll get to this down the road here, might Golden have impact on the kickoff coverage team? That's the only special teams I could see him having any impact on. But everybody's learning something new. Why not the 33-year-old? I mean, just because a bunch of young dogs are learning new tricks doesn't mean the old dog can't as well. So I think it's a possibility. I mean, it's not a huge deal either way. But I do think that's an important part. And I do want to talk about this kickoff stuff quite a bit. But first, BetOnline's your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, and many more. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So as mentioned, they dug much heavier today, Thursday, in the kickoff rule stuff. And I think there's a lot more clarity for us, a lot more of an idea of what they're looking for. Obviously, they didn't have Cordarrelle Patterson. He'll be back deep, but it looks like there's going to be 2 guys back deep. The other one's more of a blocking type. And like, for example, the Niners are using Kyle Juszczyk in that role, that if the ball is kicked to him, he can handle it, but you want him to be the lead blocker for the true returner, who's going to be Patterson in this instance. But my biggest takeaway, and we'll talk about the kickoff return team, but to me, the kickoff coverage team was the most interesting portion of what happened. So the kickoff coverage team, 11 players, of course, all defenders. Like in the past, you'd see Hayward and guys like that out there. Maybe a Boykin type receiver would have been able to crack that, but Coletto wasn't out there, the fullback. It was all defensive players prepared to tackle. So interestingly, they had one defensive lineman out there, no matter what. Started with Liao, who to me is the most logical one. He's the one that runs the best. But then they put Benton out there as a rotation, and then they replaced him with Loudermilk just to give them some snaps. So I think they're planning on having one defensive tackle type, and then a lot of linebackers, especially if you count the edge guys. I mean, guys we saw out there were Herbig, Jeremiah Moon. We'll talk about him in a second. Peyton Wilson, of course, Matakevich, Mark Robinson. And then you start to get into the defensive backs. They had two, it was Trice and Beanie Bishop were the guys farthest from the football, the guys closest to the sideline. So that makes sense. You had KZ out there, of course, Killebrew. So those are the type of players that they had out there on kickoff coverage. All defenders, all dudes that could tackle. And on the other side was a mixed bag. You saw more. Well, first of all, I thought this was interesting. There was 4 players that were on both kickoff units. And that was, of course, Killebrew, your special teams captain. Of course, Matakevich, who's basically a special teams captain. I mean, that's why those guys are here. So they do both. Peyton Wilson, who I'm going to take a side note here and just mention him. Peyton Wilson, he got some snaps. He's getting more and more snaps with the ones as well on defense. I just want to make sure I didn't overlook that. But I think you're going to see a lot of Peyton Wilson next to Patrick Queen in the dime and in base and things of that nature. So he's getting more and more and passing every test. You should be very happy about that for sure. But those guys and Jeremiah Moon were the only 4, by my count, that were on kickoff coverage number 1 team and kickoff return number 1 team. Now, Moon has some ability, but the news of Golden getting signed really hurts his cause. So who's to say if he even makes a team or not? But I think those other 3, Peyton Wilson, Killebrew, and Matakevich, are going to be on both units. So to counter the big guy, Liao, the return team had Spencer Anderson out there, who probably moves a lot better than you think. So it looks like they're going to line up with one offensive lineman type guy on the return team, 2 returners, those other 3 core guys I mentioned. But you also saw more tight ends out there, which didn't surprise me at all. Michael Pruitt wasn't one of them, but Connor Hayward was. Yeah, you did see a couple safeties and linebackers, some of those type of dudes too. So I didn't have as good a feel for the return team, what they want to do, but I did have I thought it was an overwhelming statement that they were going to have all defensive players on kickoff coverage. So there were no pads in this one. In this Thursday practice, they almost never do the day before Friday Night Lights. So that Thursday before Friday Night Lights, they usually don't. It also gives them a little bit of a break because they're off the field at midday, lunchtime on Thursday, and then they don't practice again until under the lights Fridays. It's a little bit of a break for them, and they want them to be as fresh as possible. And they make Friday Night Lights one of the most physical, fun to watch for the fans, of course. Practices out there. But there was still another fight today, 2 days in a row where there was a fight. This one, Liao was heavily involved. I didn't exactly see how everything was started, but pretty spirited. And the practice as a whole, even though they weren't padded up, was aggressive and, a high tempo, good practice. Brings me to the quarterback position. And don't take this as a knock on Fields. We've seen way more Fields. We've seen a lot of Fields. Russell Wilson, though, was out there more today. And I look at this as a positive. I thought it was night and day in Wilson's favor, that he just looked so far advanced as an NFL player and experience. His anticipation, his pre-snap knowledge is apparent. And again, this was not a lot of Wilson snaps. but he knows where he's going with the football before it's snapped. He gets off his first read much quicker. He throws with much better anticipation of throwing guys coming out of their breaks as opposed to see it and throw it. His accuracy was better. His deep ball was good. And again, this is one small snippet, but this is also stuff you see on tape too. I mean, Wilson's been in the league a heck of a lot longer than Fields. Fields needs to work on those areas, but just watching Wilson and the crispness of the passing game when he was out there, I thought was really impressive and, eye-opening. A couple other guys I wanted to just bring up here quickly to wrap things up is I think it's pretty clear August 1st that Van Jefferson is the Steelers' second best receiver. He made some plays today down the field. I think he can be useful, not great, at all levels versus man and zone. Plays hard. He'll block. So I think Van Jefferson, if I were to line up right now in two receiver sets, would be the guy opposite Pickens. Subject to change, and unfortunately, we're not going to see Ramon Wilson in that equation for a bit. That's at least a week, I would think, probably longer. But I think Jefferson is their best receiver. Again, I'm not trying to tease you, but I do think they are on the phones with other teams trying to improve there. And I'd be really comfortable with Jefferson as my 3. I'm not comfortable with him as my 2, but that's where they're at. Doesn't mean that Austin and these other guys aren't good, but Jefferson to me is noticeably better than that pack. I mentioned Peyton Wilson. Yeah, he's running with the ones. I wanted to throw that out there. And recording this Thursday late afternoon, maybe this breaks by the time you listen, and I'm not a reporter. I don't break news. Word around the bar last night with a bunch of those types is that Pat Freiermuth's agent is here in Latrobe. So there's only really one reason for that, and that's to knock out a deal. So maybe that's on the horizon. Again, I'm not trying to tease you with information or break news. I'm not that type of analyst, but that could happen. So keep an eye out on that, and we'll see. So good stuff. Camp has been very much a positive experience for me as well as what I'm seeing on the field. Hope I'm relaying that well to you, and I will be at Friday Night Lights tomorrow. So maybe I'll record something after that or the morning after, depending how things go. We'll see. I'm not sure what my schedule is in terms of podcasts up next. All right, good stuff. Take care. Over and out.